view criminal law right now, which is that when you commit a murder or something, that the real crime is against society or something like that, and therefore society punishes you. Rather, it seems that the more privatized the system was, the more non-state that a legal system is, the more and more that it focuses on restitution, and the more and more that it seems like a purely civil system. So, for example, if that rather than wanting to punish a wrongdoer for their offense, a restitution-based system would want to force the wrongdoer to to provide monetary compensation or otherwise make amends to the person who's been harmed, to try to actually restore what has been taken from them and what has been damaged, rather than just kind of making a statement through violence. And I try to remember, there's I think one more example that I'm forgetting, and it's going to haunt me after this interview, I'm sure. But I think that gives it gives a good picture of the way in which a non-state legal system would be different.
Okay. Well, Justin, we're going to take a break for 4.5, 5 minutes, something like there, and then we'll come back and we're going to discuss some more specific issues.
Excellent.
All right. We'll be right back, folks. Going to have some news bits on here and a couple of promos.
So just what is the Edge of Anarchy?
The show where liberals think we...
If you're not listening to the Roundtable of Extreme Liberty Tuesday...
I don't have answers. I have opinions and an internet connection. Hi, this is Amy Curtis from Modern Comments Radio, and you can catch me live Wednesday evenings at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
So just what is the Edge of Anarchy?
The show where liberals think we throw Ayn Rand books at homeless people in between bomb hits.
What?
What happens when Vigilant Liberty Radio ties an anvil to itself and jumps into a cavern of chaos, Looney Tunes style? You get Edge of Anarchy.
Do I make myself clear?
This is Amanda, and join me every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to find out what Edge of Anarchy is all about. Only on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
If you're not listening to the Roundtable of Extreme Liberty Tuesday nights on Vigilant Liberty Radio, you're missing things like this.
In a couple months, you're going to have 2 fewer hours a day to deal with it.
I'm going to have to crate my kids, I think, more often. What?
What?
No, I didn't say that out loud, I guess.
Yeah, that should have gone inner monologue there.
That's the Roundtable of Extreme Liberty with your hosts Alan Gordius and Crystal Schoonveld, Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
This is Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for January 28th. The Congressional Budget Office has released its latest estimate on the cost of Obamacare subsidies for poor and middle-class Americans. The figure shows the president's signature health care law is significantly over budget. Obamacare is projected to run a $1.35 trillion deficit. It will be expected to cost nearly $2 trillion, but bring in $645 billion in taxes, fees, and penalties over the same period of time. That works out to a cost of $50,000 for each subsidized person, and the forecast means there will likely be higher costs in the future. In a 2009 speech, the president vowed not to sign the law if it added to the deficit, and that the cost would be $30,000 for each uninsured American, covering about 30 million people. But even with the high price tag over the next decade, an estimated 31 million people will be without medical insurance, and costs for each individual will rise by 66%. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints issued a press release Tuesday stating support for the LGBT non-discrimination law in the wake of Utah considering SB 100, an act that would add sexual orientation and gender identity to the state's list of anti-discrimination protections. At the same time, the Church reiterated support for laws protecting religious freedom and for not forcing religious institutions to perform same-sex marriages. The Church also advocated for special protections for religious organizations, including the ability to refuse to perform same-sex marriages if the ban is overturned nationally. 19 states have passed religious freedom measures to ensure the right to religious practice, including the right to refuse to perform same-sex marriages. If the Supreme Court rules in favor of same-sex marriage in June, it is likely the next battleground will be whether or not churches can be compelled to perform same-sex ceremonies. The National Bureau of Economic Research has compiled job gain data from 2014 and has made a compelling discovery. Of the 3 million jobs created in 2014, 1.8 million of them were a direct result of the reduction in unemployment benefits. Federal unemployment insurance dropped to 24 weeks from 53 weeks at the end of 2013, a move opposed by the Obama administration. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker has formed a political committee to expand his message before making a formal run for the presidency in 2016. Walker received strong support when he spoke at the Iowa Freedom Summit this past Saturday. The committee website, Our American Revival, launched Tuesday. Walker also hired former Republican National Committee political director Rick Wiley to run the effort. Walker's political career has been notable, winning 3 elections in 4 years, including surviving a recall, in a state that twice voted for Barack Obama. The committee Walker formed is a 527, named for the tax-exempt code under which it is filed. Unlike his opponents, some of whom have formed political action committees, a 527 would give Walker more control over the funding he receives. Walker joins likely candidates Jeb Bush, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, and Mitt Romney in the pool of potential Republican 2016 nominees. And actress Angelina Jolie is reaching out to the people of Iraq and drawing international attention to the victims slaughtered by ISIS. Jolie took a trip to northern Iraq on Sunday as part of a special envoy with the United Nations. Jolie visited refugee camps and said it was not enough, quote, to defend our values at home. We have to defend them here, in the camps, and in the informal settlements across the Middle East, and in the ruined towns of Iraq and Syria. This has been Amy Curtis with your Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for January 28th.
All right, folks, we are back. You're listening to Liberty Unfiltered, and we are here with Jason Byas of the Center for Stateless Society, and we've been talking about what a stateless society would look like and examples of some societies that have been, shall we say, near stateless. So we're going to talk about some other stuff. You still with us there, Jason?
Yeah. Can I just make one really quick last comment?
Sure.
About the more general stuff. I think another another great example of a system that works without state power that a lot of people fail to remember is the vast majority of our experience every day, pretty much everywhere. That we already don't rely on government to have the conversation that we're having right now. We don't rely on government to buy goods at the grocery store. We don't rely on government to have very normal interactions between each other, to to make agreements with one another in our everyday life, that we don't have a policeman standing on every single corner making sure that everyone doesn't rob each other.
Right.
And we're already pretty peaceful. So really, I think the important thing to think about is, what is it about those sorts of interactions that we think can't happen without government, and what is it that we think requires government? And of course, there's going to be specific examples, but I think that there's good reason to presume that people are able to interact with one another without state power.
Right, and we've mentioned this on the show before, but it starting more that I lost my train of thought. Technology in itself is actually beginning to make government more and more obsolete.
Mm-hmm. Yes, certainly.
Especially the internet is just making it so much easier to have transactions, any kind of transaction over the internet without any state involvement. Mm-hmm. But I said we'd talk about some more specific things. The first question I would have is, in a stateless society, how would national defense be handled? Like protection from foreign invasion? Yeah.
So I actually think this is one of the more interesting and complex problems for anarchists to answer. And I certainly think it's a lot more of a serious question, like a serious thing to worry about than the normal worry about private security agencies and protection associations just going to war with each other. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the real threat would be from outside invaders, and the problem of national defense, which of course in this particular situation would be more defense against nations, since there wouldn't be a nation to be doing national defense for. And I think something that's interesting about remembering that part of the issue is that you're not trying to do a defense, like some sort of defense that defends so that there is a defense for the entire continental United States at the same time in the same way. That when you are thinking about how to defend anarchist society, you're thinking about how particular communities and how particular people are going to defend themselves against some sort of an outside invasion. Now, of course, there's a relevant question here of like, well, it might be the case that if someone were to be invading an area exactly in the same location as, for example, Oklahoma, that all of which had a bunch of anarchist communities there, that maybe it would be a good idea for the people living in that area to act as if they're the same place and kind of unite in their defense. And of course, I think that's true too. But the relevant reason that I bring up the fact that it'll be defense against nations rather than national defense is that it's a whole lot harder to conquer an area that doesn't have a government than does. And the reason that that's the case is it's definitely feasible to suggest that you could conquer a government of a foreign country, just by conquering its capital, right? That if you have the capital in lockdown, there might be a little bit of a resistance elsewhere and someone trying to relocate the capital, but it's a pretty significant blow at least. Whereas if the entire continental United States were to suddenly turn anarchist, and Canada or something tried to conquer Washington, D.C., that would not do much at all for the anarchists living in San Diego, right? And even people in D.C., that just conquering Pennsylvania Avenue is not going to mean that the whole city is now under the control. Like, to conquer an anarchist area, you have to conquer not just a capital city, but every particular